Welcome to the True Crime Cafe. I'm Angie.
I'm Becky, and you won't believe the case I have for you today.
What you got for me today?
I am going to say something that might surprise you, Angie.
Okay.
Nobody dies in this episode.
What?
Yeah, no one was more surprised than me. But I'm calling this one the $400,000 fraud.
Okay.
I know you and I have both been the type of people to pay things forward, whether it's rounding up a retail purchase to the nearest dollar, or the virtual strides where we walked and counted our steps to get the little medals, and the money we paid for the medal went to charity. Making conscious choices about where we donate things, like to the Habitat for Humanity Restore. In fact, last week when I visited you in person, we passed the Restore and my husband was like, "Ooh, do we have time?" And I'm like, "Honey, we don't have time and we don't have room in the car." No. Because you had decluttered your office and you were donating some craft supplies and I was getting some to share with a family member.
Yes.
Perfect example. Have you ever participated in a crowdfunding project like GoFundMe or Kickstarter?
I have.
So I've done GoFundMe in the past. And most of the time it's like something I see on Facebook, a story touches my heart. I go to read more and then I'm like, take all my money. So, and most of the time it's strangers. I don't even know who these people are. I just know that, they're in worse off condition than I am. And I have a little bit I can contribute. I also contributed to a gaming related Kickstarter in the past. It was a Dungeons and Dragons kind of thing. And I'll be doing a Kickstarter later this year to kick off a new cozy mystery series. Yeah, things like this are not unusual. This story involves GoFundMe and how it was going to help Johnny Bobbitt Jr. Now, Johnny Bobbitt Jr. grew up in Henderson, North Carolina. It's only a few hours from where we live in South Carolina. And his father described him as a nice young man who did not know what to do after graduating from high school. Like most young people who graduate and aren't sure what they're going to do, he joined the military. In this case, he joined the Marines. He became a flight medic and he had a real heart for helping people. After he became engaged, he somehow became addicted to drugs. Yeah. And his family discovered that he was stealing from them to help fund his addiction. He left North Carolina and went to Montana. After he was in Montana for some time, I don't know exactly how much time, he followed a job lead to Philadelphia. By this time, he had been given the nickname Country due to his Southern gentleman manners. In every interview, he was very soft-spoken, and from his expression, he did look very friendly and genuinely warm and caring. He was living on the highway. He was described as a full-blown addict at this time. He made his living by panhandling, and one of his homeless friends said that Johnny might make $100 to $200 a day in panhandling, and that's how he funded his addiction. Now, at this point, he had not been in touch with his family at some time. They had no idea he was homeless or where he was, period. And Johnny's dad acknowledged in an interview in a special about this on Hulu that no matter how much the family wanted to help Johnny, there was nothing they could do until Johnny recognized that he needed the help, which sadly is the story for so many addicts. So despite being homeless and an addict, Johnny was still pretty generous. And the best example was when Kate McClure, a secretary from New Jersey, was driving through Philadelphia and her vehicle ran out of gas. Now, according to Kate's Facebook post back in October 2017, Johnny gave her his last $20. And she was so overwhelmed by his generosity that she told her boyfriend, Mark D'Amico, that she wanted to reward Johnny for paying it forward. Mark tracked Johnny down, gave him $100, but Kate wanted to do more. She and Mark set up a GoFundMe campaign called Paying It Forward. In the GoFundMe description, she recapped what happened and said she and Mark wanted to raise $10,000 to get Johnny an apartment and a car to cover some of his other expenses. And when they got to $1,700, they let Johnny know about the GoFundMe. And at that time, he said $1,700 was life-changing money to him because, he's like living on the streets. A small newspaper picked up the story and suddenly all the newspaper outlets had it. It went viral. I remember hearing about this when it happened. That's all I remember is that two people set up a GoFundMe for a homeless guy and it went viral. So the GoFundMe topped out at just over $400,000 from the generosity of over 14,000 people. Johnny said it was like he had hit the lottery. He said he wanted to use the money to get a permanent housing, and he acknowledged that money cannot change how you treat others. It couldn't buy love, it couldn't repair relationships with his family, or it could not get him any other things that a lot of people take for granted. In one interview, Kate tearfully said the money would give Johnny a future. And and Mark said the support was incredible and everything seemed hunky-dory. But this is the True Crime Cafe, so you know there was nobody living happily ever after.
I was just thinking that.
Right? An investigative news team got a tip encouraging them to look into how Kate and Mark were spending the donations for Johnny. The news team went to a source they deemed reliable, Facebook. Now, last week, we discussed that Facebook is not reliable.
Well,
it's not reliable for researching true crime on your own.
It depends on where you visit on Facebook.
Because if the information is hearsay or gossip, that's not reliable. Like if Johnny's fourth cousin's third-time removed dog's former owner's girlfriend's lover said she's seen Johnny give his last $20 to Kate, then it's probably not true.
Yeah.
But when investigators saw Kate and Mark posting pictures of things like themselves taking a helicopter ride over the Grand Canyon and a picture of Kate with a new Louis Vuitton purse on social media, that's called evidence. So it's evidence that they were out buying.
Yeah, but it's not necessarily straight up evidence that they used the GoFundMe money.
I'm just saying. Not on its own, no.
I mean, taken with other things, yes, but taken at face value, it's not.
Right. Yeah. And for anyone who doesn't know, Louis Vuitton purses are very, very expensive. My husband has a rule that I should probably not buy a purse that costs more than a house payment.
That's a good rule to have.
Yeah. And since we moved, our house payment's a little bigger, so I can get a little nicer purse than before. But still not the one I want from Louis Vuitton. So in addition to tracking how Kate and Mark were spending the GoFundMe money, the investigative news team was also looking for Johnny, and they could not find him because he was back on the streets. Now, before this, Kate and Mark had bought an RV-style camper for Johnny in their name and put it on property that their family owned, but apparently they didn't work out and they sold it. And according to an article in the Washington Post, Kate and Mark also bought Johnny 2 cell phones, a TV, and an SUV. But then a headline broke a new twist in the story. Johnny claimed he did not have any access to his GoFundMe money.
What?
Yeah. So Johnny said that in the beginning, Kate and Mark kind of acted like parents controlling his money because he's an addict.
That makes sense to an extent.
Yeah, to an extent. Lawyers reached out to help Johnny and found that Johnny had received about $75,000 and had left about $325,000 unaccounted for. When the investigative team reached out to Johnny's lawyer about what they found on social media, the lawyer was like, yeah, Johnny can talk to the news team. When they asked Johnny why he did not have a trustee handle the money, he said he was afraid if he made waves that Mark and Kate would kick him out and they would cut off contact with him. So in an interview with Megyn Kelly, Mark and Kate said they had not spent the money from GoFundMe on themselves. They said they only controlled the money so Johnny wouldn't use it on drugs. And they said they were holding $150,000 for Johnny.
Okay, so where's the rest of it?
Right.
Still leaves like over 150 grand.
Yeah. So the prosecutor investigating the case soon realized that the GoFundMe money was gone. And it was not lost on them that Mark, who was a self-employed contractor, and Kate, a secretary, had lived beyond their means. Yeah. Kate saw where this was going, and she recorded a conversation with Mark. And when she accused him of being behind everything and her being innocent of any wrongdoing, Mark quickly pointed out that she had a $20,000 BMW, a $5,000 trip to Disney, $10,000 in purses, and more. And he said that proved that she carried equal guilt. She was not just along for Mark's ride. The Courier Post reported that investigators reviewed months of bank transfers and withdrawals over a 4-month period and found that $85,363 in cash was withdrawn at or near casinos in Atlantic City, Philadelphia, and Las Vegas. The search of Kate and Mark's home also turned up a dozen newly purchased designer handbags with a total value of more than $11,000. And there was an affidavit that said that Kate purchased the BMW with donors' funds, and the car was towed away during the search. The affidavit also stated that the BMW was used that next year in 2018 to collateralize a high-interest 5-year loan for over $10,000 in Kate's name, underscoring how quickly and voraciously the trio burned through the money raised through the false gas story. When investigators dug into the 60,000 texts between Kate and Mark, and it was Kate's text, Mark's text, them to each other, them to other people, it was over 60,000 texts total.
That's crazy.
Yeah, right? They found one from Kate to a friend. And the Washington Post reported that less than an hour after the GoFundMe page went live, Kate texted this friend and said, okay, so wait, the gas part is completely made up, but the guy isn't. I had to make up something to make people feel bad. So shush about the made up stuff. Kate's friend replied saying the gas story would backfire if news reporters interviewed Johnny, but Kate said she and Mark would explain everything to Johnny. Later, I'm not sure if this is the same friend or a different friend, but a friend texted Kate saying, you really need to get rid of him, meaning Johnny, and get the public off your back by donating. And Kate fired back, I'll be keeping the rest of the money. Thank you very bleeping much. So the friend warned that Johnny could out them, but Kate really didn't seem concerned. And the prosecutor said that between social media post and text that Kate and Mark were not very bright about this whole thing. And he said their arrogance was their downfall. And at this point, investigators are wondering, how did Kate and Mark really meet Johnny? It turns out that Kate and Mark had frequented the casino near the area where Johnny panhandled. And they had talked to other people panhandling in the area until they found Johnny, who agreed to go with their scheme. And as for the story, the prosecutor had a good idea about where they got it. There was a Facebook post on Johnny's profile from back in October 2012 about something Johnny said occurred while he was living in North Carolina. The post said, so this girl runs out of gas and has a flat tire at the same time in front of Walmart and is blocking traffic. Everybody blows the horn and cusses her, but of course no one helps her. So I run to the gas station and then change her tire. I spent the only cash I had for supper, but at least she can get her little children home safe. Yeah. So once this went viral in the news, Johnny's brother tracked him down. Johnny and Mark had talked in Facebook messages. He had Johnny's brother's phone. And his message said, we should really talk about things. There's been a lot of people asking questions, and I really don't know what to say. We should get out of here before things go public. I have really been trying to avoid people, but it's becoming more and more difficult. And Johnny added that he and his brother would get on a bus anytime that Mark could take them, and that Mark could even watch them leave. Mark said he would meet up with them. It never happened. So Johnny decides to sue Mark and Kate for the balance of the GoFundMe money, right?
Okay.
At first, Kate and Mark said they turned $200,000 over to Johnny, but refused to give him any more because of his drug habit. Johnny responded that a gambling addict keeping money away from a drug addict was hypocritical, and he was owed that money.
I mean, it is, but at the same time, nobody should have gotten that money.
I agree. So when a judge ordered Kate and Mark to turn over any remaining funds to Johnny, they had to admit that there was no money. They spent everything, and they knew what they were doing the whole time. But Kate and Mark had a plan to get this money back, because of course they did, right?
How? By gambling?
Nope. It's even better considering our jobs. They were going to write a book called No Good Deed and use the royalties to pay back the GoFundMe money they had spent. So the investigation turned up a letter from a literary agent encouraging the couple to get a lawyer.
Wow.
So this went to trial. An article in the New York Times reported that Johnny pled guilty in March 2019 to conspiracy to commit theft by deception and was admitted into a program that offers treatment rather than incarceration to people with substance abuse problems. Prosecutors added that he could face 5 years in a state prison if he does not meet the program's requirements, including frequent drug testing. And so he's still awaiting federal sentencing. In April 2019, Kate pled guilty to theft by deception in state court and agreed to a 4-year sentence with restitution. She also pled guilty to conspiracy to commit wire fraud in federal court. According to the ABC affiliate KABC's website, Kate asked the judge for leniency and no prison time, but he sentenced her to 12 months and 1 day in prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release and restitution to pay back her portion of the $401,000 owed to GoFundMe. Kate apologized in court, saying, I had every intention of helping Johnny, and I never had any intentions of letting it get as far as it did. But the judge said that even though she knew Mark was a thief and a gambling addict, she implemented no controls to allow the money to flow into his hands and onto the casino floor, and that she also benefited. And the judge said, even with charitable intent, that Kate, from the beginning until the end, was a knowing participant. And he said the real victims in this case were the voiceless 14,000 people who had handed over their money to the scheme. And he said that the case was a harmful thing to a society that wanted to help people. So she is awaiting federal sentencing. And December 2019, Mark pled guilty to a state charge of misapplication of entrusted property. Last year, in 2021, he pled guilty to one count of wire fraud, conspiracy in federal court. And in April, Mark was sentenced to 27 months in federal prison. And about a week before we're recording this episode right now, he was sentenced to 5 years in the New Jersey State Prison for his role in the fraud, according to an article in the New York Times. So his state and federal sentences are going to run concurrently. And like Kate, he's also going to have to pay restitution for his portion of the GoFundMe money. Now, what really happened is that Mark and Johnny met at least a month before Kate was brought into the story.
Okay.
And she had no idea at first that she was set up to be the face of the scam. But once she found out, she embraced the role and she spent the money alongside Mark, as we've already outlined. The initial $10,000 that Kate and Mark asked for was the amount of debt that they were in at the time that they set up the GoFundMe. So that's no coincidence.
No.
His lawyer said that she was a caring individual who operated under Mark's influence in the shadow of a terrible breakup with her ex-boyfriend before Mark. That's really no excuse. Like, you don't rebound by scamming people out of $400,000 and spending it. The prosecutor and an addiction recovery specialist who both knew Johnny, as well as one of Johnny's friends, all agree that although Johnny's a drug addict, he's not malicious and there's no way he could have come up with this plan on his own. The addiction recovery specialist said she raised an eyebrow when she first heard that a heroin addict gave someone their last $20 out of the goodness of their heart, because she said she did not know any addicts who would pay it forward before they paid for drugs. And that makes sense. Like, if you're not prioritizing spending your money on food or shelter, but, I don't know, the world's a weird place. So Johnny's dad said his family has not seen him in several years. According to one news reporter, Johnny's not ready to really talk to anybody. Johnny's dad said he thinks Johnny wants to get himself in a better place before he reconnects with any loved ones. I can kind of see that.
Yeah.
Now, GoFundMe had kind of a problem. They were missing $400,000. They were also worried about how this might affect the future donations of legitimate recipients. The good news is there was no drop in the number of donations going forward. People were still generous, even after they found out about this. But GoFundMe, that was when they changed their policy that the person who starts the GoFundMe cannot be the same person who receives the money. And
makes sense.
Yeah, it really does. I wish it would have been that way the whole time. We could have avoided this whole case. We might have been talking about murder. So in a November 2018 statement, GoFundMe said that it would refund all donations from the campaign, calling the scheme extremely rare and unacceptable. This is the biggest refund in the history of GoFundMe. And I think that says a lot about the company's integrity. And an article at newjersey.com reported that GoFundMe initially planned to make sure Johnny got his total amount due from the campaign before anyone knew that he was in on the scam. This makes me more confident about donating to other GoFundMe campaigns, knowing the company puts its focus truly on wanting to help others. And that is my story of the $400,000 fraud.
That's crazy.
Right?
I remember hearing something about this, but I never delved deep.
Followed up. Yeah.
I didn't either. That's crazy.
I just remember, that's nice. Some homeless guy got,
all this instant wealth.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I know GoFundMe, you hear about it all the time where they'll shut down GoFundMe campaigns that now that they've determined are not legitimate and, before the money actually gets released.
Right. And they have standards now, it can't be for frivolous reasons. I know someone who it was their third cousin or something, wasn't a close family member, but they were like, look what my stupid cousin did. They started a GoFundMe so their kid get a tattoo to match their sibling's tattoo. That's not why you get a GoFundMe.
No.
So.
When GoFundMe is used correctly, it can benefit and it does help people who truly need it. Usually the ones that I donate to outside of from people I know, if it's a stranger, it's usually medical related.
We won't even get into how our healthcare system is a different kind of crime. Right. But yeah, most of mine are either medical related or expenses after a loved one passed away suddenly. Anything having to do with children.
Not anything. I'm not gonna lie, I have a soft spot for children. However,
I'm not gonna say anything, but I'm gonna say the ones involving children get my attention more quickly.
They do.
Yeah, due to circumstances in my own family. I have a soft spot for kids.
I do too. However, I also remember Gypsy Rose.
Yes.
Whose mother built all these people.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of like when it involves like a stranger period, before I make a donation, I do my research and I delve deep to make sure that it is legit.
That is always a good idea. And that was one of the things that GoFundMe said in an article. They were quoted as saying that, and actually quite a few of the articles I used in my research, they also mentioned before you just hand over your money, know who you're giving your money to, research. If you're not sure, don't do it.
Yeah, definitely.
If anything feels like a big red flag, just back off.
Trust your gut.
Yeah. And most GoFundMes aren't like, you need to do this by the end of the hour, or the person, their fate is.
Let's be clear. Most GoFundMes are legit.
And there's a timeline there. So if you're not sure about it today, you can make yourself a note and go back and check on it like next week, next day, whatever. Payday. For me, it's payday. I'll bookmark it to, go back on.
Yeah, but that was very interesting.
Yes, very different than my norm.
It is. I was expecting murder. There was no murder.
I'm sorry.
It's all good.
I'll make sure there's murder for next time. Not personally. I won't personally make sure there's murder for next time. But
pretty sure my story for next time involves murder.
I can't wait.
I think. I don't know. I can't think straight right now. I've had a very long day with work. So
we'll find out next week.
Yes. Yes, we will.
Okay. Stay caffeinated.
And join us next time for another cup of crime.